Hello there, I'm Scott Douglas from the University of British Columbia's Okanagan campus, and I'm in the Faculty of Education. And this is the fourth of 6 videos exploring the principles of EAP materials development and design. And this is the fourth video, and what we're going to be looking at today is this big question: what are some key principles for EAP materials development? And we're going to specifically be looking at scaffolding, spiraling, and recycling. And we're going to look at how these ideas, we should keep them in mind when we're either developing EAP materials or we are creating our own EAP materials or choosing EAP materials. So, as I've mentioned before, it's a good idea to have an idea of your basic principles that you're going to be using when you're choosing or when you're developing your own materials. And making these principles explicit can help you be better at adapting and reviewing and designing and developing EAP materials. I think a lot of us have these ideas sort of subconsciously, and so the goal of these videos is to bring them to the surface and to think about them specifically. I've been tweeting about these different ideas, and you can follow me at Scott Roy Douglas on Twitter. And if you go to the hashtag EAP materials writing, and there's a space between EAP materials and writing, you can find out some of these tweets. So these are 3 of 18 that we're looking at in this series of videos. So today, the first one we're focusing on is scaffolding. So what do I mean by scaffolding? Well, you can think about when you're building a new building and all the ladders and scaffolds they have around that so that they hold the building up as it's being built. Well, this is the same idea that we can have for when we're teaching English as an additional language. Scaffolding are the supports that we put in place so that students can achieve the various tasks that we're doing in class. What we do with scaffolds, they lower the cognitive challenge in order for students to better be able to complete the activity. So what are scaffolds? Well, scaffolds, they can be outlines, diagrams, different kinds of charts to help organize thinking. Maybe even scaffolds can be white spaces in a piece of writing or highlighting of key things. So here, for example, we have an activity where the students are writing a compare and contrast essay, and the scaffold that's in place here is an outline to help students organize their ideas after they've finished brainstorming. And so this outline, it sort of takes away the stress of wondering how to organize the essay and allows students to better focus on the ideas and then write at a level that's higher than they would be able to write without the scaffold. So you're always thinking about scaffolding when you're creating EAP materials. The next thing I want to think about is this idea of spiraling. So we don't just teach something once and then think, yes, excellent, the students have it. What we do is we're going to teach something and then we're going to revisit that idea and we're going to reinforce these ideas throughout a curriculum. And so whether it's language or strategies or concepts, we're going to revisit them throughout a unit of instruction or maybe throughout an entire semester from different perspectives and different angles, while we're also ramping up the challenge of the activities to help students better understand them. An example might be when you're looking at something like plagiarism. And so you might introduce the concept of plagiarism to students, and you might start off by saying, okay, this is an example of plagiarism, and here are some details about that. And there are consequences if you do these kinds of things. Well, throughout in this own particular program of studies here, we start off by maybe being explicit about plagiarism, but we spiral in that we ramp up the cognitive challenge of the activities from giving students clear-cut examples of plagiarism to now creating situations where the students themselves have to think, well, is this plagiarism? Why? And so we're getting them to decide about a topic. And so you can see this is how we're spiraling it and looking at it. Also, we look at it from different sort of disciplines. So this is an example of geography, but we also look at like, well, what is plagiarism maybe in a unit on education or a unit on engineering? And so you're revisiting these ideas. Recycling, it's connected to spiraling. Recycling again is that, like, if you teach students vocabulary just once, they're probably not going to get it. So the idea is that you need to intentionally repeat language learning objectives such as vocabulary or grammar or different kinds of functional language that you're teaching at certain points, because you want to naturally reinforce these elements during a series of lessons or across different units that you're putting together during the semester. They say, for example, if students want to remember vocabulary, they need to be exposed to it maybe like 6 to 8 times. However, if students want to be able to use it in their own writing, now we're looking at them needing to be exposed hundreds of times. So how do we plan for that recycling? So here we have some vocabulary that we're introducing in a unit of geography, and we have some words from the academic word list. Well, it isn't just this one-off activity that students are doing. They're going to be introduced to the vocabulary here, and then they're going to use it in an activity, and then they're going to encounter it in a reading, and then they're going to encounter it again and use it as they're brainstorming a writing activity, and then they're going to use it in their own writing. They'll see this vocabulary as they look at students, their fellow students writing, so you can see they're seeing it over and over again. And then once we leave this unit of geography, we'll see if we can't reintroduce it in other units from other disciplines so students can see how is vocabulary used across disciplines. And so there you have it. Today we looked at scaffolding, spiraling, and recycling. And those were the 3 things that we focused on today. In the next video, we're going to look at 3 more. But thank you very much for listening to me. These are the references that go along with today's talk. Have a great day.